Today is June 10th. Welcome to Big Book Daily. My name is Rob. I am an alcoholic. It is a thrill, honor, and joy to be here with you today as we journey through the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions. Today out of the Big Book, we are going to continue our journey through Chapter 8, Two Wives, by reading pages 117 and 118. Out of the personal stories, They Lost Nearly All, we're going to continue our journey through Listening to the Wind by reading the second half of page 463. And out of the 12 and 12, we are going to continue our journey through tradition number 8 by reading page 167. So with all that, my friends, hope you're doing well this morning. We've been given a brand new set of 24 hours. That's always a good thing. And hey, it's up to us today who we decide to be. So let's go ahead and press on and get to the good stuff. If you recall from yesterday's reading, we were talking about how, there was a suggestion for the wives, to the wives, that, hey, why not practice these principles in your own life? Because we're human too. It says right here on 116, we found that like everybody else, we were afflicted with pride, self-pity, vanity, all the things which go to make up the self-centered person. We're all human beings. We're all flawed in our own ways, There's always ways we can improve, and these 12 steps are certainly a practical and spiritual way to improve on those. So we are continuing this chapter by again reading 117 and 118. If you and your husband find a solution for the pressing problem of drink, you are, of course, going to be very happy. But all problems will not be solved at once. Seed has started to sprout in new soil, but growth has only begun. In spite of your newfound happiness, there will be ups and downs. Many of the old problems will still be with you. This is as it should be. The faith and sincerity of both you and your husband will be put to the test. These workouts should be regarded as part of your education, for thus you will be learning to live. You will make mistakes, but if you are in earnest, they will not drag you down. Instead, you will capitalize them. A better way of life will emerge when they are overcome. Some of the snags you will encounter are irritation, hurt feelings, and resentments. Your husband will sometimes be unreasonable, and you will want to criticize. Starting from a speck on a domestic horizon, great thunderclouds of dispute may gather. These family dissensions are very dangerous, especially to your husband. Often you must carry the burden of avoiding them or keeping them under control. Never forget that resentment is a deadly hazard to an alcoholic. We do not mean that you have to agree with your husband whenever there is an honest difference of opinion. Just be careful not to disagree in a resentful or critical spirit. You and your husband will find that you can dispose of serious problems easier than you can the trivial ones. Next time you and he have a heated discussion, no matter what the subject, it should be the privilege of either to smile and say, "Hey, this is getting serious. Sorry I got disturbed. Let's just talk about it later." If your husband is trying to live on a spiritual basis, he will also be doing everything in his power to avoid disagreement or contention. Your husband knows he owes you more than sobriety. He wants to make good. Yet you must not expect too much. His ways of thinking and doing are habits of years. Patience, tolerance, and understanding and love are the watchwords. Show him these things in yourself, and they will be reflected back to you from him. Live and let live is the rule. If you both show a willingness to remedy your own defects, there will be little need to criticize each other. We women carry with us a picture of the ideal man, the sort of chap we would like our husbands to be. It's the most natural thing in the world, once his liquor problem is solved, to feel that he will now measure up to that cherished vision. The chances are he will not, for, like yourself, he is just beginning his development. Be patient. Another feeling we are very likely to entertain is one of resentment that love and loyalty cannot cure our husbands of alcoholism. We do not like the thought that the contents of a book or the work of another alcoholic has accomplished in a few weeks, that which we had struggled for years. At such moments, we forget that alcoholism is an illness over which we could not possibly have had any power. Your husband will be the first to say that it was your devotion and care which brought him to the point where he could have a spiritual experience. Without you, he would have gone to pieces a long time ago. When resentful thoughts come, try to pause and count your blessings. After all, Your family is reunited. Alcohol is no longer a problem, and you and your husband are working together toward an undreamed of future. And some great stuff here. Can't wait to come back to this in a minute. Alright, so if you recall from the personal story yesterday, Listening to the Wind, our narrator has moved. Her health is failing. She's malnourished. She's got a new job. She's no longer working in prostitution, but she has a new job, but she is getting very, very physically ill. She has bleeding ulcers, and the doctors are telling her that if she doesn't stop drinking, she'd probably die. The narrator, she's admitting she has a problem. She's starting to realize that the drinking's becoming a problem. And she's trying to quit on her own. And meanwhile, she has some support from her parents regarding her son. So we're going to continue that thought on page 463. My dad and I decided to go to a Native American gathering. I hadn't been to one of these powwows since I was a child. When we heard the drums and watched the dancers, I felt some great passion well up inside me. I felt like an outsider. I wanted to drink. I wore my hair down to my waist and wore a lot of turquoise jewelry I'd collected over the years. I looked like the people, but I certainly didn't feel like one of them. I felt as if they all knew something that I didn't. In an effort to prove that I was getting better, I started hitting the streets again in order to make more money. I told my parents that I was going down to the mountain to visit friends. I received my third arrest for drunk driving on one of those trips back, after working all weekend. The night in jail seemed a long time to go without a drink. So once again, this kind of ties into our reading in the core text, about old habits. And these old habits are coming back for our narrator as well. So we see that she's resorted to her old job and she's gone back to drinking it. But again, we know that, she's on thin ice with her health. She's on borrowed time. And finally, out of the 12 and 12, we're on tradition number 8. Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. And if you recall from yesterday's reading, it was pretty self-explanatory. It said on page 166, alcoholics simply will not listen to a paid 12-stepper. Almost from the beginning, we had been positive that face-to-face work with the alcoholic who suffers could be based only on the desire to help and be helped. That's it. All right, so we're going to read 167 today. Caretakers who swept floors, cooks who fried hamburgers, secretaries in offices, authors writing books, all these we have seen hotly assailed because they were, as their critics angrily remarked, making money out of AA. Ignoring the fact that these labors were not 12-step jobs at all, the critics attacked as AA professionals these workers of ours who were often doing thankless tasks that no one else could or would do. Even greater furors were provoked when AA members began to run rest homes and farms for alcoholics, when some hired out to corporations as personnel men in charge of the alcoholic problem in industry, when some became nurses on alcoholic wards, when others entered the field of alcohol education. In all these instances, and more, it was claimed that AA knowledge and experience were being sold for money. Hence, these people, too, were professionals. At last, however, a plain line of cleavage could be seen between professionalism and non-professionalism. When we agreed that the 12-step couldn't be sold for money, we had been wise. But when we had declared that our fellowship couldn't hire service workers, nor could any AA member carry our knowledge in other fields, we were taking the counsel of fear. Fear which today has been largely dispelled in the light of experience. Take the case of the club janitor and cook. If a club is going to function, it has to be habitable and hospitable. We tried volunteers who were quickly disenchanted with the sweeping floors and brewing coffee 7 days a week. They just didn't show up. Even more important, an empty club couldn't answer its telephone, but it was an open invitation to a drunk on a binge who possessed a spare key. So somebody had to look after the place full time. If we hired an alcoholic, he'd receive only what we'd have to pay a non-alcoholic for the same job. The job was not to do 12-step work. It was to make 12-step work possible. It was a service proposition, pure and simple. Yeah, it kind of goes back to the meetings themselves, right? There still needs to be a place where we can have these meetings and pay the overhead. So there has to be a little bit of financial responsibility in order for these meetings to exist, or in order for this 12-step work to be possible. But again, making a profit off of alcoholism, I think that's what they're talking about here. That is where the issue would be. All right, my friends. So going back to the core text real quick, your husband knows that he owes you more than sobriety. He wants to make good. Absolutely. I can speak from personal experience on this one. When I started getting sober, I knew, that clearing the records from my past, I knew that I had to make my amends to my wife and my children, living amends. But my defects didn't go away overnight. Thankfully, the drinking, stopped. But I was still selfish and self-centered. And for me, it was more in the negative sense. I was always beating myself up, always criticizing myself, hating myself, truthfully. So, these things took time. But over time, keep working the steps by prayer, countless prayer, and showing up to several fellowships, over time, that self-hatred slowly started to fade away. But as, I've said many times, it takes time. It says right here, his ways of thinking and doing are habits of years. Patience, tolerance, understanding, and love are the watchwords. Show him these things in yourself and they will be reflected back to you from him. Live and let live is the rule. If you both show a willingness to remedy your own defects, there will be little need to criticize each other. And I am so grateful. I think about my wife, and she is one that I think when she saw that the fellowships were and this program were really working in my life, or let me say the God of my understanding through these outlets, when she saw that, she began to look within herself and start working on herself as well. And I can say from personal experience that our marriage has thrived. We're better parents because of it as well. But it all takes time and an investment and working on ourselves. Because really, that's the only thing we can change is our own attitude and our own outlook on things. Goes back to that old saying I heard many years ago, to make whole, be whole. So with that, my friends, that's all we have time for today. I don't speak on behalf of AA or NA or Al-Anon or any other sect, denomination, or religion. I'm just a dude. Just a friend in this lifeboat of recovery. And it is a true thrill just to be here today. If you are sober today, my friends, please hear me when I say that you are a miracle. You really are. Because there are so many other people out there still suffering from this terrible disease. The fact that you're sober today is a miracle. And I'm sure that those who love you are very proud of you. So, my friends, if we were given another set of 24 hours, I sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, look forward to seeing you right back here tomorrow.